Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for sticking around. It's Friday after like really 5 full days of the speaker sessions, all the wisdom. We made it, right? And you are here. Like I believe 30, 40, 50, the number is going up. So it's really nice to see you. Some of you in the this meeting room, some of you in the lobby. But thanks so much for joining us. My name is Yasir Kurt. I serve as the director of the graduate team at the Life Design Lab here at Johns Hopkins University. So today, four career services professionals who really dedicated, committed to work with international students joining with me, but not just they are joining as panelists for this particular, very informal conversation. It's going to be happening in the next 1 hour or so, but also they represent their respective institutions as part of the International Career Collective. So I'm going to go ahead and then ask them to introduce themselves. Then we can go ahead and then discuss how these, the particular session will look like, and we can go from there. Let's start with you, Ivette.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ivette Mekdessi. I'm the Director of Career Development and Counseling at Rice University in Houston, Texas. And I'm the former co-chair of the National Career Development Association's International Services Students and Scholars Committee, mouthful. I'm very passionate about working with international students. I've attended my international schools my whole life, even though I was born and raised in the U.S. And I have family all over the world. So I'm very passionate with international students and happy to answer some questions from y'all today.
Awesome.
Addie, do you want to go next?
Oh, you passed it to me. Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Addie Cheng. I'm the Associate Director for International Student Career Engagement at the University of Southern California Career Center, Gaeun, for those of you who are here. I'm also very passionate about international student education and career development. I lived and worked in China for 6.5 years before coming back to the US and getting into career services. I did educational consulting, helping students apply for college in the US, and I've been in career services for the past 5-ish years. And yeah, I also did study abroad in France when I was in college, so I have a lot of international experience and really care a lot about study abroad opportunities for students. I think that can be life-changing. So yeah, I will pass it on to Esther.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you all. My name is Esther Ra, and I'm from the University of Pennsylvania. I'm the Associate Director of Career Services there, and I work with the School of Nursing, the Graduate School of Education, and the School of Social Policy and Practice. I'm also a lecturer at the Wharton School, and I co-chair the International Committee in my office. I also have traveled and lived overseas. Most recently, I taught in Seoul, Korea last year at Korea University during the summer session. So have enjoyed traveling and also studying and working in other countries. And so very passionate about helping international students. Passing it to Gwenn.
Yeah, thank you, Esther. If you visit Korea again, let me know. I'll recommend other places. I used to have a lot of friends there. I'm also from there. So hi, everybody. My name is Gaeun, so also go by Gwenn. So you can see some of you, if you're from Korea, my name is kind of Korean, only unique name you can see in Korean, I think. So I'm a director of graduate career development at Georgia Tech Career Center. I also serve as a faculty member there. So in Georgia Tech, we have 42% of our graduate students are international students. So my work always involved with the grad student career development. So many of the, always 40-50% are international students. So I'm really kind of passionate about supporting, empowering them because, oh, sorry, it's kind of some cooking machine is working now. But by the way, so I'm really excited to be here. I was a former international student because I pursued my PhD and came to US for that. And then somehow life happened. I'm staying here supporting student career developments. So I'm really happy to be here. It doesn't mean what I know is everything kind of covers all the international student challenges, but I'm really excited to share what I learned and what worked best for international students.
Awesome. So here's what we're doing today. There is no agenda. There's no hidden questions. So I didn't share any questions with, maybe I'm lying. Maybe I shared a few questions, okay? Just back up. But there is no like really, the question set stone. We can just like really do this freestyle. No one is moderating. We're gonna be having like really conversational conversation. Yeah, floor is yours, students. Ask us your questions. Let's start with the first one. Whoever is that lucky person, either unmute yourself or type your question, and we can go from there. The one disclaimer, however, we do not want to respond to questions that more requiring like legal advice, or I mean, you can ask and we can say, hey, this is not, falling in our wheelhouse, and we can go from there. And also there are some questions like more Office of International Affairs office. We may not answer that kind of questions, but anything and everything about the career development and life design questions, please bring to our attention. Okay, anyone? If you are here, again, ask questions.
If you're uncomfortable sharing question in chat for everybody, you can send it to any of us directly so that we make sure your identity won't be shared in the question.
You have 5 career services professionals, like really 5 individuals, experts in the field. I don't know when will be the next time you're gonna see this many professionals in the same room. Take advantage of it. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and then just like really, one of the questions that at least on my end, I've been keep hearing, I can ask that question and then we can start. Students ask, how soon is too soon to start the job search? Anyone? Just like take the lead.
Never too soon. I think the job search starts with career exploration as well. So, I mean, even if you're not actively applying for jobs, I think it's a good idea to begin, researching different organizations, different job titles to get a better sense of, what their requirements are, what their culture is like, so that once you're actually actively applying, it's a lot easier to know where you want to focus. And even just starting to network earlier so that you can, talk to people in those companies, in those industries and job titles, so that you just have a clear picture of where you want to be.
I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, my question is 2 parts. Number 1, as you talked about the job search, when you are beginning your job search, how do you bring up the information about the different visas or sponsorships that the company does? Maybe the company does not know about them, maybe they do. How do you begin to have that conversation with them, with the different companies that you meet? And my second question is relating to different job types. For example, part-time, internship. What does the international student have access to be able to do? So those are 2 different questions. Thank you.
Maybe I can go first. So first question, when should we reveal our identity, right? I mean, it's hard to tell. You will hear a lot. It depends, right? But in general, my understanding, so when you apply in the job application, typical question you receive after you are uploading your document, a cover letter, resume, they will ask, do you have a work authorization in the US, right? And the second question, do you need a sponsorship in the future from your employer? So that's the way they identify whether you are international students or international talents. So not ideal word, but it's not ideal word, but some companies using that as a screening purpose, right? So maybe they are not allowed to hire international student, right? Or they are not sure how to support international student, right? So they sometimes use it as a screening purpose. So if you know that you answer that question when you're submitting, they should know already about your status. So my recommendation, don't bring it up at the beginning, right? So one case is, you don't want them to kind of know there's one more barrier they need to go through to get you, right? My recommendation, show them how great you are, how amazing you are, and make them excited about you. And then later in the process, right, or for kind of close final process, they might ask you, right? If they are not sure, they want to confirm. At that moment, they really like you maybe, so they will find a way to support you. I see those cases, not very often, but I see them because they really see the value having you. So that, maybe filing one person for H-1B won't be too hard, because what you can do for the company will be much more than $3,000 or $4,000 they need to pay, right? So my recommendation, don't bring it up, especially early stage, because then you become a candidate with one more barrier they need to consider, right? So I would recommend maybe if you want to bring it up at the end, maybe with a conversation with the hiring manager or with the recruiter, because if they really like you, they would like to confirm with you. So that's my answer. But before I go second question, anybody want to add or
I completely agree. I would just add, because I don't know if any of you have attended, but there were 2 really good sessions earlier this week that you will all have access to the recordings for. One was how to reveal your international status during the job search process. So I do recommend tuning in if you're curious to learn more about that topic, because it goes in a lot more depth about it. And then the other one was a fireside chat on marketing yourself as an international student. So do refer back to the content that you have through this summit as well.
what was the second question? I'm sorry.
The second question was what are the different, could an international student apply for any type of job, full-time job, internship, part-time?
Yeah.
Or are there restrictions?
So you can do all, but depends on which institution you are in, what support they have might be very different. So for example, part-time, if it's on campus part-time job, you can do it, right? Because F1J, I'm talking about more like F1 visa status, right? F1 visa is supposed to be study visa, right? So in their justification, you are kind of on campus, right, where you study. So you might kind of say, okay, you can, within the community of a campus, you can do work. But beyond that internship, you can do it, but you need to have a course that you need to register during the time you are doing internship. So you need to use some other award authorization called CPT, curricular practical training. That kind of justification is what you are learning in the school. You want to apply at a kind of internship in the temporary work environment to see how your learning in academia can be easily transferable, how you apply in the practical setting. But you need to have an internship course that you can register in order to do the internship. So each institution is so different how they offer. For example, at Georgia Tech, I was very surprised when I joined. We have a tuition-free internship course. It can go to the 3 credit to 12 credits. Student can take all the time, summer, spring, fall. Depends on their situation. They have some limitation, but they can continue to do internship as long as they are kind of meeting the qualification, even though they are international students. So full-time job, you can use another award authorization called optional practical training. You can use it, but depends on whether you are STEM or not, how long you can use. Typical one is 1 year. If you are STEM field, you can go up to 3 years. And after then, if you want to continue to work, employer need to sponsor you called H-1B. So you can still work. You have a work authorization, but what you have after your degree is temporary.
I just want to highlight just a few key rules around that for international students. The main ones being you can't do off-campus work until after you have been in valid F1 status for a year. So for your first year in F1 status in your degree level, you can only do on-campus work. But then after that, then you can apply for internships and jobs off campus, again, with a limitation that if it's during the academic semester and you're a full-time student, you can only do part-time internship or work, and you have to always have work authorization. Usually during school, it's CPT, and then after you graduate, it's OPT. And then whatever type of work you do, it always has to be related to your major as well. So you can't be a dental student and then apply for an internship in computer programming. So there's that as well.
Thank you.
Awesome. There are many questions here, so I can start reading them and we can go ahead and then answer. So I'm glad that students are participating now. This is awesome. So first question, what will be your advice for someone making a career change after a period of study, pivoting from one area of work to another, for example, from communications to policy research? I'm going to say something since, I'm talking, then you can all chime in. I will say, if it is possible, it may not be easy, but finding folks, they had this very similar, if it is the same, it's perfect, but that's the ideal word. Like similar transition, right? Have conversation with them. Let's say that like pretty much like networking, right? Having that curiosity conversation, but let's say that it's impossible for you and somehow you are, facing the roadblocks. Go ahead and then find someone in the policy research and then have conversation. Hey, I'm bringing this skill set from my, the expertise and the work from communications or field of communications, how I can perhaps, transfer some of those skill set into these. Do you have any suggestions for me and so forth? For this particular student, I will suggest that go ahead and then do that with as many people as possible. Is because sometimes it's time consuming. You can think that, oh, I'm going to reach out to Yasir and then he has nothing on his plate, so he's going to be there for me, but not necessarily. Sometimes it could be back and forth. All of a sudden, like after 2 months, you're having just one single conversation. So I will pause there, but anyone wants to chime in or any other advice?
Yeah, I will chime in. I actually think that as a graduate student, this is actually the best time to pivot, because I think when you're actually in the workforce, it's not impossible, but I think it's a little bit tougher. When you're in school and as a student, there are so many people and so many resources at your disposal, and it's really a matter of you going after them and finding the folks to network with. I always tell my students networking should and always be your part-time job. That's something that you work at every week, even if it's just 1 or 2 emails a week or having a goal of reaching several folks. And sometimes your networking can be very casual and, you ran into someone and you said, oh, we should have lunch sometime, follow up on that. But I would say, if you're switching from, say, communications to policy research, there's a reason why you have that, interest in another field. And so in your resume, in your coursework, maybe there are things you can highlight that show your experience in that other field. And if you're not sure that you have that, then as Yasir was saying, you definitely want to speak to people in the field that are, already inside, that can, sort of share insider information with you on how to build that so that you can frame your resume and your experience so that it is angled for that field. But I would say as a student, you sort of have a very advantageous point of view to kind of pivot right now.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I will add some extra point, especially I'm not sure your situation. If you are the international student, you need to think about how your field of study can connect with your transition, right? So yesterday you are in the communication. There are so many ways to define communication, right? You are in the marketing. I'm just making degree pursuing, but you want to go policy research, which is not clear that they are connected. They might be hard to moving forward because you have to get a job that's relevant to the field of your study. But there are several ways, right? Kind of your hiring manager can justify for you the why it's relevant. So just something to consider if you are international student for sure. And the others, if you are working, I'm not sure your situation, right? So internal transition can be really great way to think about because Georgia take up a lot of online master students who actually have a 5 to 10 year experience in thinking about transitioning. So they don't think about internal transition possibility. Even though it's not long term, it's short term, it will be easier because they already trust you, they want to keep you. So they might move you to in the place maybe kind of more midterm that you can earn the more experience. And the another thing, lastly, communication can have a really relevant point of policy research, right? They do a lot of person-related kind of focused in research, right? Interview focus group. What are the things you're looking for, right? What kind of policy research? Policy research usually go by, right? Quantitative research aspect, or are you thinking about machine learning, AI? That's already getting big data research is getting bigger and popular in policy research. So you need to understand what you want to get in and how you can use your existing skill, or do you need to learn more to actually add a more niche point. So I think that's something to think about. So you have to understand also field difference or field similarity to think further than just policy research.
I will just add, I think Gaeun was saying, it's really the transferable skills that you want to pay attention to and look at and see what can be transferable that I already have that might actually be something that they don't have in all of their candidates that you can emphasize and position yourself well for. And, as Gwenn was saying, there are things that you may not have, but that's okay if you make a case for yourself in that you have these other transferable skills, because not everyone is going to know 100% of every job that we apply for. Otherwise, we would never apply for a job, right? So you are going to learn on the job, but it's making a case for yourself to say, I'm a good candidate for the job right now as I am.
One last little thing to add is, sort of tying into what Gaeun was saying is, using your current experience wherever you're working now and try to find opportunities to begin your pivot within. Like it's the best time to look for a job is when you already have one. So also if you have opportunities to do more like research related work or, like Gwenn was saying, focus groups or things that are more transferable to policy research while you're still in a communications role, that will help you when you do make the pivot, because you'll begin building those skills and the experience that you need in that industry. And, also be having conversations, like Esther was saying, with people in that job so that you get a better sense of what's actually needed to make that pivot. And potentially it might be another degree if that's a limitation.
Perfect. I'm gonna go in and jump in next question. Should I prioritize relevant projects on my resume or previous not super relevant internship experience? I'm gonna make it short. Resume is all about the relevant experience, whatever relevant is. I keep getting this question like pretty often. Is that an internship but is not relevant? Job experience like 10 years but not relevant. But there are projects that super relevant. You know what, data science I never did in my life before, but right now actually there are so many projects that I'm like utilizing Python, SQL. I'm like, yeah, those projects should be in your resume. But if anyone wants to say extra or chime in, like please feel free. I'm not saying that this is the right way, but anyone? Yes, no, okay.
For a resume for industry. For a resume for industry in the US, it is the most important and relevant experiences you have gained and used that you want to be telling on that document, because you want to keep it to 1 page, ideally 1 page in length. For a CV, you have more space, you can add much more. But for an industry resume, you want to keep it short and sweet and to the point. They don't want to know everything about you. They just want to know what's most important and relevant. Projects are great. If you're doing projects in your courses, you can definitely do those as well. Projects in your extracurriculars, you could definitely mention those as well.
I might just add one more point. If you are the PhD student, I would say you can go up to 2 pages, right? So I know you have so many things you can offer. So sometimes going to 1 page is like actually underselling your kind of achievements, such as publication. Those things can transfer so many different ways. So it depends. But if you're applying for internship, I would say usually 1 page, whether you are PhD, master, undergrad. As Ivette said, they are not interested in learning everything. At the point, they are mostly interested in most relevant experience you have, so that they can assume you can do the work they want you to do.
Anyone else? Okay, perfect. Do you recommend spending time trying to find someone to refer you for a job? I will say 100% yes, but anyone, please?
I get this question a lot, and I think a referral can be great, but I would also keep in mind that people who work in companies that offer referral bonuses, I think they will be more careful about who they refer, because they only get the referral bonus if the candidate they have referred does get hired. So you can't just, I do not recommend just reaching out to people on LinkedIn, for an informational interview, or even just saying like, hey, I'm applying for this job, can you give me a referral? That's not something you can do just like straight up front, because it is sort of something that will happen if that person knows you and trusts you and actually understands the quality of the work that you will bring in to the company. So they're like, a referral won't just happen for just anybody who asks for it.
And this, I will say, this is why I think networking should always be your part-time job. Is it the best time to build that relationship is when you're not applying to that job. But that doesn't mean you can't network while you're applying for a job. You certainly should, but it just puts a little bit of undue pressure on the other individual, the professional that you're speaking with. And it sort of can put them in sort of a sticky position. So I think, if you're looking for that referral and you're interested in an employer in a specific job role, it would be to your benefit to reach out to them early before jobs are posted, before you're about to graduate, because then you have a relationship with that individual. You're finding out information, you've gathered that, all the things that you need to know to position yourself well, and you're not scrambling to ask a stranger, can you refer me? So you want to build that relationship, and that's the relationship that will possibly open up doors for you.
I think one point referral is why it's popular. I think it's very important to know, right? Because it's not just they are doing it, just want to have someone similar. It's more about reducing the risk of hiring someone they don't know, right? So if somebody advocate for internally, that means you are less likely someone they don't want to keep it, right? So that's why referral is so important. Coming back to connection networking means a lot. So definitely yes. And that's why all the people rely on those networks to hire someone less likely be a person they want to let them go, right?
I have a couple things to add to that. Just to clarify, when we're saying networking, it's just building a bridge with another human. You do it all the time. It's just sometimes using some strategy behind it, where you're reaching out to alums or people who are in those companies or in those industries and fields you want to go into. So just to demystify, it's not as intimidating as it might seem. And the US is not a meritocracy. So it's not like you did well on this test and so you can go do this job. Who you know and how they can vouch for you can be really helpful. And so that's why it can be sometimes worth the time to spend, even if you haven't networked or built relationships with people in those organizations, it can sometimes be worth it that you invest in that process as you are applying, if you have not yet been doing that. But hopefully from today onwards, all of you are going to start building relationships. The other thing I would say is, with a lot of the job boards you're looking through opportunities for, they have deadlines for when the postings are going to go down. So you might not even have that luxury of time. If it comes down to you submitting that application and then building that bridge with humans, there's nothing wrong with you networking after you've applied as well. So don't feel like just because you haven't done it before you applied, it doesn't mean that you can't do it before you go for that next interview, or even after your first round interview as well. People want to help you, and that's the part we forget. The news doesn't want us to think that, but the reality is people want to help others. And really, when we're saying networking, it's because people want to help you. They've been in your shoes before and they want to help you. That's why we're all here, to help each other, right? So humans do like to help each other, and that's what I would try to remember when thinking of asking for referrals. You're not just asking for a favor, you're giving them an opportunity to help someone who's looking to grow in the field that they're in.
Okay. Next question is from Lisa, and then my understanding, if I'm articulating that, not the question, but more like, I believe, the comment, like thoughts. Lisa, you are working with students as well, right? You are not a student.
I'm working with students, yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
So is because I can speak about what you pretty much like pointing out here for hours and hours, if it is not weeks, months, and years. So if anyone wants to chime in, please do so. But again, that's like really something more like, I believe, the administrative, the leadership, it is like really like bigger than I am, at least. So I don't know how to somehow reflect that question. But please, if anyone wants to, you see Lisa's the comment there, but if you have any thoughts and then respond to Lisa, feel free. Gwenn, you are on mute.
Thank you. I just had 2 weeks ago, I had a conversation with my team about this. That's why I just quickly. So as I should say, it really depends on how leadership thinks about supporting international students, right? So Georgia Tech here, we don't have an international student advisor, career development advisor, because I think one thing is we have a committee and who are really kind of passionate supporting international students. We have a subcommittee who actually always working on programming, right? So the reason we don't make, my understanding, is that we want our whole team to take a responsibility for supporting international students, rather than one person taking all the pressure and burden. Because sometimes when there are someone, go someone, right? That person. I mean, but I also, another perspective, having someone dedicated also great, right? Because that person will always think about a certain population, always advocating for it. So I think it depends on the stage of your institution. Well, are they already having good understanding or good support system talking about international students? Then, okay, make sure everybody have some responsibility to supporting them. That's, I think, what Georgia Tech is happening. Also, I'm very strongly advocating for the international as my population about heavy international focus, right? So but if your institution doesn't have a lot of support or understanding, right, then it's having those person will be really beneficial because more and more people see the value and see the kind of opportunity to contribute it to. So that's just my understanding perspective.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Lisa. So I believe that next question is like one of our students at JHU, and then it's like more life design specific. So 2 questions. One of them, again, issue, I said that just reach out to me and we can have conversation about the life design lab and programs. I believe that we do a lot, including this kind of like the whole summit. But your question about, the life design and then you asking pretty much, do you think it is important to have a really detailed design of our life, including detailed career goals, like what position should I achieve within 3 years, and personal life, like about marriage and our family? So I will say that the whole point about the life design and design thinking is just like, the getting like really messy in your work, right? And then we are really emphasizing the being curious, like curiosity and also exploration. That being said, I believe that it's completely opposite. If you hearing about the career goals is like more maybe career development, but as our Vice Provost Farooq Day, reimagining, the career services, I believe that what we're saying that career development is out, but the life design is in. So my suggestion will be like really the quick advice. There is no just one correct career path, is because again, the career is not linear, it's like our lives, right? So I will say that focus on those 2 things. The one is curiosity and the other one is exploration. This is for everyone in this call, including ourselves as well, is because again, our passion is going to be changing. Our interest will be changing. As we're learning, our skill set will be like really evolving and such. So we can always be on the new chase, like whatever we are looking up to, whatever we're following. So I will say that dream big, but do not forget to prototype things. Keep ideating, prototyping, and testing. This is what like design thinking is, the suggesting and encouraging us to do so. Okay.
Can I
So
add to that quickly?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes,
The
please.
US college experience is different than other countries. It's embedded into part of the college experience is that you explore and pivot. And so that's part of your experience. Ideally, make the most of it. Like I think Esther was saying earlier, when you're a student, I'm not sure who said it. But yeah, when you're a student, you can explore. And so definitely make the most of the opportunities to learn more about different fields you're interested in, test them out, whether it's shadowing through, a quick job shadow or an informational interview, connecting with someone, learning more about what they do. So like Yasser was just saying, also pivot, ideate, test it out, lots of different things, but that's embedded into your experience here in the US. Ideally, you're doing those things. We don't even know what the jobs of the future entail. So you can't say in 30 years, I'm going to be doing this, because who knows, if that job is still going to exist or if there's going to be another way of doing it. And a lot of the novelty in opportunities is because people are bridging different interests of theirs to create new opportunities. So you might have an idea of what you want to be doing in 3 years, and that's great. And you might not, and that's great too.
I mean, I think one thing, depends on the stage of your life, right? If you have a lot of family obligation or family responsibility, sometimes really, really hard to know what's like in 3 years, right? So in that stage, if you have a too much specific plan, you want to exactly be like in 3 years, you will bring too much pressure on your life. You might not enjoy every day, kind of happenstance, right? Something unexpected happened, but it changed your life in a very positive way. But I think it's important thing is having more bigger goal, right? So what are the things you want to continue to carry in your life? So when my case, I always think about supporting graduate student, PhD students, something really I'm always want to keep in my career. So I happen to move a multiple institution, right? It's not my plan, but it happened to be because of my family issue, right? But I know I move so many different places, but I know what I'm doing is still something I really care about. So I think having goal is great. Plan it, that's great. So you have a purpose moving forward, but don't forget big picture why you are doing it. So don't stick to the just small detail. Otherwise, you won't enjoy your life. Also you will ignore some happenstance. They will actually bring a lot of joy to you.
Sometimes I'm asking students, what you eating tonight? And then they're like, oh, burger and whatever. What about tomorrow? And then they know, right? They plan. What about next day? If they're going to gym, maybe 5-7 days, they know what they're going to be doing. How about next week, next month? And then they're like, okay, I got it, right? So it's because not every time you can plan things. But again, the whole idea, like you all made a great point. Just again, learn, right? Explore. Next question is about CPT and OPT. Again, I will say that this is, again, that question for International Affairs Office. So please ask that question to your office, I will say. But we have like really good question over here. Like all the questions good, but maybe I'm more attached is because the mentorship piece. For networking, building connection and mentorship, how do you reach out to a person who you don't know him or her at all, but you would like to get mentorship from them? Besides, how do you politely ask them to form mentorship with you?
That's a great question. And I don't mind answering it because I'm in the process of, I launched the mentorship program for international students, and I'm in the process of reviewing mentor applications right now. But I think, if it is not a structured mentorship program that you're part of, it can be tricky. Honestly, mentorship is not necessarily something that you just go out and ask for and it happens. It's usually more of a natural progression from a networking relationship that you have built. So, all this emphasis that we're putting on networking, part of that is, if you have a relationship that starts to grow and you have a really good rapport with an alumnus, and you've been talking and you feel like, okay, this is someone I want to stay in touch with, that is a mentorship. Whether or not you actually call it that, if you're having a regular, communication with someone and they're helping you and giving you advice, that's mentorship. And maybe someday you'll say, actually, I think you're my mentor. And I'm sure they'll be like really flattered to hear that. But that's really, when it's informal, it's not so much about asking, hey, will you be my mentor? Although you can, when you feel comfortable, like have a rapport, you can ask that. But oftentimes it just kind of happens naturally.
I also chime in. One thing that we encourage our students to do is really think about and reflect on your overlap with the individual that you're approaching. And so a lot of times, and I'll get approached as well, and people will schedule an informational interview and they'll come and chat, but sometimes it may be evident that they haven't really thought about how we can be helpful. They want to talk to us or are attracted to talking to the individual for a specific reason, but they haven't fully thought through what it is that they want to ask. And so my advice would be to think about that overlap. Like what is it about your experience that would draw, advice or sort of inspiration from the other individual, especially if they're further along, because if you don't know that, then they're not going to know how to help you. And so I think that takes some reflection and pause on you to do that. And just really quickly, we had a hire, one of our leaders on our campus came to visit our office and works directly with the president at the time. This was a few years back, and he said, I have Penn students who want to talk with me. And he was also a person of color. And he said, I love talking to them, but sometimes I don't know what they're asking me. And so you don't want the person to walk away thinking, okay, what was the point of that conversation? Because most people, again, as Ivette was saying, they want to be helpful, but you also want to be pointed in that time because they want to be helpful. And so you want to make sure that you think about how they can be helpful. And so making sure that your questions are strategic and thoughtful.
Yeah, I mean, I will briefly just add it to because I really like Esther's point, because actually 2 days ago, I did a panel, virtual panel with all the really big names, right? Recruiter and alum talking about networking, right? All they saying, networking is not what you want to talk. Networking is you have to think about what they will feel when you approach to them, right? Do you think you have some at least homework to make them feel that person really know me, something they really want to get to know what I'm doing, rather than they just want to get out of something. Or if you're sending really default message, they're so busy, especially they're really well known, so they don't want to spend time, right? But if you have some commonality, you can point the part, right? You can specify, then they're excited, right? Because they know they can find the commonality, they might be helpful. So, really think about how others will feel and try to be helpful to them, even though you might get much out of it from the conversation.
I want to add two things. Definitely, you want to go in prepared, and you also want to be ready to talk about yourself, because when you answer questions like "tell me about yourself," it'll help that person who can be your mentor better mentor you and better guide the ways that they might identify to help you. But you can also go in prepared with, how have you identified this person can help me? So if you see on LinkedIn that they're connected to someone you want to work for or with, or in a company, for example, and letting them know that, you're saving them the guesswork of trying to figure out, well, I want to help you, but I don't know how, right? So identify that before you go in. And there are some sample questions. Check with your career centers. They all have some helpful resources on how to prepare for these conversations and how to make the most of them. Some career centers have structured mentorship programs. It's wonderful. Some don't, but they might have some resources. I'm going to drop a guide that we use for just preparing for informational interviewing that has some sample questions in there. And the other piece I would say is, a lot of people who want to mentor have given us feedback that one of their biggest pet peeves is that they'll help students and meet with them one time, but they'll never know what happened. So follow up. It is so important to follow up. So few people do it, and it can make the world's difference for you having a much stronger and better mentorship relationship. Remember, it's a relationship. It's not a one-time conversation.
I love that, Ivette. I think there's like a lost art to follow up and thank you. And I think those things are free. You can do them without having to expend much. And so the one other thing I want to really mention is that I think sometimes we focus so much on having one mentor or the mentor, but I really believe in having like a board of mentors. And there's actually there's a very well-known article that was written by the Harvard Business Review that I'll link in a minute. But, it's having several. You're not going to have the person that knows everything about, the career that you want to have, because most of the time we all have very individualized and customized interests that are interdisciplinary, and not everyone can be able to speak to every single piece of that. And so you really want to have many mentors, different people that are, in tune with different parts of your interests. And I know that's true for me, and you're not going to necessarily keep in touch with all of them, every week, every month. Some of them you'll check in with only twice a year or something like that. And that's okay. And that person can still be your mentor, and it's not going to be the structured thing necessarily. But I think it's really important to widen that definition of what a mentor is and make sure that you invite other people in, not focusing on the mentor or having that one person.
Perfect. I'm going to something really quickly, then we can move on to next question. I had a chance to write a doctoral dissertation on, the topic of mentoring using the connectedness theory, and had a chance to design, develop, and execute several mentoring programs. What I've noticed that heavily for international students, what international students do ended up like really identifying those mentors, those folks like from their own culture. And then I understand that point is because they want to have someone who could like relay for some of the stories, understanding the process, let's say in this case, OPT, CPT, H1B, you name it, but not necessarily when we're talking about, the mentoring, you all, made really, really great points, identifying that mentorship. It doesn't have to be formal all the time. It could be informal. Like Esther said, it could be several of those folks. Some of them you can identify as sponsors. They are really creating opportunities for you. You have no idea even they are working for you, right? So just be mindful. I will say that, yes, that is important. And then research really shows that and then supports that idea. Having a mentor from your own culture and then the background, the industry, you name it, that will be helpful. But do not limit yourself to have mentors from only, again, oh, I'm from Turkey. My mentor should be someone definitely from Turkey, stay in US right now. They are going and then building that, the career here in US. No, I can go in and be open. So be open-minded. That's super duper important. But thanks so much, all. And then this question was great. So I don't know if we have an answer for this. At least I'm not an expert at all for this next one. As an international student thinking about applying for international summer internships in software-related roles, how do I start looking for companies that sponsor visa for internships? I will say that at JHU, we have, I believe, a department, the study abroad and such. I believe that they handle this kind of, I will say, the questions or the students' needs. But if anyone has any, the thoughts on this, please chime in.
So, I mean, again, it depends on the student. I want to get information more, but so if you're applying for internship, so usually you are gonna use CPT, right? Curriculum practical training. That's mostly you can get through your internship as long as you have an offer, right? So so in terms of that part, you don't need to worry about are they sponsoring me or not. There's nothing that much need to do if you have an offer, and then you can get some internship course. So, but if you want to understand like a company who have actively sponsored maybe H-1B, because they might most likely consider international student as a candidate for any opportunity, right? So if your institution has some services or some kind of platform that support international students, such as I don't want to say some platform we actually projected using. They have a really kind of robust data. You can search internship full-time job in software engineer, but if not, you can actually even go h1bvisa.jobs.com. That's a kind of a private website, but you don't need to log in anything. You can just search H1B top 100 employer information, right? Also, you can search based on the industry, tech area, so you can find who are the top 100 who have a sponsor H1B. So those are the employer most likely sponsor or understand CPT because they've been done so many times. So I will recommend doing it, but go to your institution career center to see if they have any specific software dedicated services dedicated to supporting international students. So they will be very helpful to find specific information.
Gwenn, thank you. This is great. But the question is about internship in other countries, not in US.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Oh, no, that was great. I mean, what you shared is like really cool. And I believe that they needed to hear. So yeah, but again, it's about the.
I think it applies though too, because the Career Center might have resources to help get you opportunities abroad. So just check with your Career Centers first and foremost, check with your study abroad offices. And if they don't know, they can point you in the direction of other resources you might have access to within your institution to help you get there. You can also always see alums from your institution who work in those countries via LinkedIn. So if you go to LinkedIn, search your school, click on the school page and then click alumni, you can search by wherever they live, whatever they're doing, and they would be more than happy to, when you reconnect with an alum, they're always most often wanting to help you, even if it's in a foreign country.
Yes, you took the words right out of my mouth, Ivette. I love the LinkedIn alumni tool, so I always refer students to that. And I think aside from that, there are some resources, like if you are a USC student, we do have a resource called Going Global that is very international focused. So like it has guides on work culture in different countries and different global cities, different US cities, so you can kind of get a better sense of what their requirements are for applying for jobs, what the work culture is like, what a resume should look like. So, if your school has that, that's a good resource. But if not, definitely leverage your alumni network. Talk to your career center and find out what resources they do have.
We're good. Next question. Okay. Next question is, which again, we have a full session. Ivette mentioned even we have like several sessions about this, but the question is, don't companies blacklist people who don't tell their international status in the initial application? I'm gonna answer really quickly, and then if anyone wants to say, but again, there is the whole session. We know that this is the question we keep getting pretty often, right? But to me, I will say that what is the point of like coming to US from Turkey? Let's put that way. I didn't do STEM, but let's say STEM, spending $300,000 is because the STEM is 3 years OPT and everything. Then you go to job application and then you say, yes, I need a sponsorship. why these people like invented STEM, why there isn't that 3 years rules and everything, why we have to say yes. Yes, it is case by case. Sometimes you have to say maybe, yes, I need it, is because maybe recruiter is calling you and then forcing you somehow, like very smart, right? Hey, but are you sure? But your name is Yasir. Are you sure? Like whatever. So I am telling you, say no, okay? Even if I'm gonna get in trouble, this is being recorded. That is the easy way. What is the point of studying in US as an international student and you have either 1 year or 3 years OPT, CPT, whatever, but still we keep getting the same question. Your Office of International Student Affairs will be saying maybe different things. If you are in certain institutions, certain, the schools, it could be different. It's because sometimes there are like that relationships. Career services or the schools may not like really destroy that relation with the employers. Okay, everyone? Again, I'm going like this straightforward, but please use your due diligence. Today, I may say yes. Right now, 4 folks in this, the panel with me, they may say, you know what? I mean, I say no. They say no, case by case. Or you know what? Say always yes. There is no just one single answer to this question. But I will say that I will never, ever go in and say, yes, I need a sponsorship. I don't know where I'm going to be in 3 years. I don't know what I'm going to be eating tomorrow morning for breakfast. This is me. And then I'm just like pausing here. But I want to, again, if anyone wants to chime into this question, please feel free.
Okay, yes, here. I'm going to actually do a little argument for the other side. So sorry for this, but I would recommend you check out the Marketing Yourself or the Job Search Strategies session that was led by Nitin Agrawal from InterStride. He answers this question. And I've also, I try to ask this to employers just to get their perspective on this. And the consensus that I've been getting is that they're not asking, when they ask, do you now or will you in the future require work visa sponsorship to work in the US? They're not asking, do you plan to stay in the US? They're actually asking, if you were to stay in the US after OPT or whatever, would you require sponsorship? So in that case, the answer is always yes. It's honestly, that question is more of a replacement for just saying, are you an international student? And they can't ask that. So they're asking, like, will you require sponsorship instead? So I have had employers say that, I know that it can get frustrating to be screened out when you answer yes to that question, but from the employer perspective and considering your own perspective as well, you don't want to waste everyone's time by having them, have you go through the application process, go through interviews, and then only to find out at the end that actually they can't hire you because they don't sponsor. And so that's another consideration, is if you go through all of that and then you're wasting all of that time just to find out you can't do it after all. And some employers might blacklist candidates who do that. Ideally not, but some employers don't take it well, and they consider it like falsifying your application.
So I'm going to chime in really quickly, is because I love discussion, but I know that it's already 5:55. But I believe that international students should be really wise and smart to know that when they're applying to, even like this is a whole process, right? The networking and everything, they should already know, yes, myvisajobs.com or several resources. You're going to already know if this employer is going to be sponsoring or not. But here is the deal. Again, here is the kicker there, right? Even though there are some employers they actually sponsor, but for some of the applications, you still get that question by default. So how will you answer that then? You know what I'm saying? So that's why I say, go in and do your due diligence in advance. You only like really targeting those employers they sponsor, but when you get that question, just be mindful. But again, that goes for back and forth, and I respect that, Addie. That's my humble opinion.
I'm going to add to, you should know beforehand from your networking if it's possible to work for that employer, from your networking, from your research. So you should know before you're filling out that application, ideally, because you're doing this homework before time, right? Like this is your part-time, you're doing it with time. I will say at my institution currently, there's a lot of black and white, right? An employer will say, no, I don't sponsor. Yes, I do sponsor. But then some of those employers that say, no, I don't sponsor, will still make exceptions for some students. And you can go on My Visa Jobs and see, oh, actually they did sponsor people. So even though the recruiter's saying, no, I don't sponsor, because it might make the recruiter's job easier, or it might make their job of filling the role faster easier, it doesn't mean that that's a hard rule that they will not sponsor. So don't always take what you're seeing marketed at face value. Sometimes dig a little deeper, and it might be worth your time and effort, because you might be surprised to see the company that you thought you couldn't go work for, you actually might be able to.
Yeah, just to add on to that, because I don't want to sound like the Debbie Downer here, because I do think there's also still hope, like if there's an employer that you really want to work for, if there's a job you feel like this is the job for me, it's the perfect opportunity, like find a way to reach out to the hiring manager and just talk to them and let them know, hey, I am an international student, but this is who I am, this is why I'm so excited about this position, and I have 3 years of OPT or 1 year of OPT, whatever it may be. I think if you were to try me out for this period of time, you would realize that like I'm the perfect candidate, and I would love it if you would consider me, and just see what they say. I think talking to a human is always better than just putting your application out there and crossing your fingers. So like that's why the networking piece is so important, but especially in a case where you're not sure if the sponsorship will be possible, putting a face to the name, making yourself known to the hiring manager is going to make all the difference.
Anyone else? No? Awesome. So I couldn't understand this question. Ree, maybe you can elaborate, but how about for a 2-year leadership program and I have 1 + 2 years OPT? I mean, I don't know what 2-year leadership program is, but Ree, if you can unmute yourself and maybe ask, or anyone knows 2 years leadership program?
Yeah, hi. Can I just talk? Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, thank you. So how about like declare my status, right? Let's say I have a 3-year OPT in the future. So how about if I apply they have like some entry, like training program for 2 years? Can I just say I don't need sponsorship, like I don't need like at all, right? Because it's gonna be 2 years. I'll have 3 years. In that case, can I just say I need no sponsorship in the future, like now in the future? Kind of makes sense. Yeah, that's my question.
I would say if you do that, I've seen people do that. The thing is, once the paperwork is needed for OPT, then they're going to ask you, why didn't you say this at the beginning? So you need to be comfortable addressing that answer. Verbally, it'll most likely happen verbally, but it might happen via email. Either way, if you're going to do that, you need to be ready to explain your thought process and why you're doing that.
Yeah,
I mean, I think I see the case actually something like this, right? It's kind of 1-year rotation program, and then the internationals I work with do not kind of have a 1-year OPT, right? Using OPT, but that person have a planning for getting green card, so that's why. But I think that person still put it, yes, I need a sponsorship in the future at the moment, right? So if many companies who are familiar with OPT, CPT, H-1B, so if you are STEM field and you are applying for 2-year rotation program, if that program only ends after 2 years and that there's no obligation to work for them, maybe they will go for it, right? But another thing, my idea, they are doing rotation program. They want after 2 years, they want you to work for the specific department, right? So also eventually day one, no, right? Whether you need a sponsorship because they need to sponsor you in the future. So I would say still put it, you need a sponsorship because eventually you want to work for the company, organization who really cares about you, who go for the fight for the getting you back, right? Rather than company who want to screen you just because of status. I think I also want international student time really valuable because your time is valuable and you have a really lot of things to bring. But anyway, to answer shortly, I think I still recommend saying, yes, you need a sponsorship.
Thank you.
If I might add just one last thing, our post-graduation destination survey that we do at the Career Center shows that the number one way that our graduates get jobs is through internships. And that's the number one way a lot of employers like to host interns, is because their goal is to hire them for the long term. So like they see internships as like a training opportunity for prospective long-term employees. So that's why even for internships, they will ask that type of question because they are actually thinking like 5 years in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Friday, and it's already 6:01 p.m., but still there are here 5 career services professionals, they're discussing all these amazing questions. There are several folks like still are here sticking around and then listening. So I will say this, and then I want to hear maybe the last, the most important tip from every single person in the call here. But hopefully, again, this is just like really the ideal world, right? Imagine we never talk about this yes, no, the question. Is that possible? Who knows? But I just like really want to make that point there. We just like talk about how to design our lives, what should be, how that path should look like and everything, but not this particular, the question is because in that particular world, international students don't need to worry about that no and then yes question. That's my wish for maybe this new year, right? I can do that. Yeah, I'm gonna take that note. But Ivette, Gwenn, the Addie and Esther, thank you so much. But if you can just like go ahead, maybe when we're wrapping up, what is the tip or strategy you want to just like leave the folks in this call today as they go from, maybe being a student to being a professional?
I'd say you are not alone. So if you're here, you are a member of an institution that is committed to helping international students in their career development process. Do not forget that. Enjoy that and make the most of it. A lot of your peers might not have made the most of it. They might not have showed up to this or registered for this. And so you're, by default of just engaging the summit, you're already leaps and bounds ahead of your peers. But remember, all the topics we've talked about, some of it can seem overwhelming, and there's a reason why in the US we have career services offices in your institutions to help you through this process. You already have a full-time job of being a student. You don't need another full-time job of figuring this out on your own. So you are not alone. Remember to connect with your career services office.
Gwenn, Addie, Esther?
What I would say is don't be afraid to ask. If you don't ask, the answer is already no. And so I always tell folks, always ask and put it in the other person's court to respond to you, because, that's all you can do is ask. Because if you don't ask, and I tell this to my students who are fearful of imposing or putting a burden on someone else, even if they say no or don't get back to you, you're not in any different position than when you started, right? So always ask and put that ball in the other person's court, because you only have to gain. And so, I think there's a famous hockey player here in the US, Wayne Gretzky. He said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And so I would say, don't be afraid to ask.
Take your shot, everybody. I'm kind of waffling between two pieces of advice, but I think I'm going to go with quality over quantity. That's one thing I'm always telling my student advisees and in workshops. I think when I know there's the urge to like put out 1,000 applications because you feel like, okay, like if I just spread my net wide, something will come back. But if your net is full of holes, then nothing will come back. So the best strategy is, make sure that you're tailoring your application, your resume, your cover letter for the position, the companies that you're applying for. Make meaningful connections with people, not transactional ones. If you think about quality over quantity in every aspect of your college experience and career exploration, you're going to get back a lot more than if you don't put in as much, but you spread farther.
It's hard. I'm not really good at giving one those advice. I was thinking, so looking back my experience, right? First of all, as an international student, know that you have a lot of things to bring, right? A lot of where you can add it to, right? You are really already brave enough to come different country using second language to learn, and that's right? That's not everybody can do, right? So just know that you are really beyond the being international student, right? And also, but still prepare, right? If you want to stay in the US, it is competitive. You have one more layer to navigate, but it doesn't mean it's hard. I mean, you cannot do it. You just need to navigate more softly and with the plan. So especially approaching employer, be prepared to talk about why you are amazing, right? What you can bring to table, right? Also be ready to educate employer that hiring you is actually plus, not the barrier they need to go. Sometimes employer may not know using CPT or PT is really not going through immigration process, but smaller company may not aware. So be ready to educate, also be ready to show how great you are, okay?
Oh, it's my turn. So mine is simple. Visit your career services or centers, whatever it's called, often, once a week, twice a week. If you can go every single day, make us career services professionals, life design educators, your best friends. Once you do that, you're gonna see that everything will change in your journey here in the US and beyond. But thank you so much, Ivette, Gwenn, Addie, and Esther. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Either you joined for only this session today, or you've been like really joining every single session since Monday, 1:30 p.m. with the keynote, the speaker. But the second iteration of International Career Summit this year, not just by Johns Hopkins University, but happened through these amazing folks, some of them here in this screen you can see, through the International Career Collective. I am extremely happy and then thrilled to be working with these amazing folks, really these exceptional leaders and the professionals in the field. But thank you so much, everyone. Have a good weekend, and we will see you in February. Is because we already know our career fairs dates, February 9 and February 16. Just stay tuned. More information will be on your way. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye-bye.